Now, in this particular role, I guess you don't need any experience. My experience doesn't match with what I'm doing, and especially I think Google doesn't care.
Thank you, Akrati, for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Would you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course, Young. So I'm Aakrati Kinger. I'm currently working at Google in regulatory affairs finance function as a program manager. And I'm originally from India. Prior to moving to US for my MBA, I worked at EY and Goldman Sachs in various like finance and analytics kind of roles. And then I decided to do my MBA from UNC Keenan Flagler. I tried my hands-on investment banking summer internship and then made a decision to work from within the industry and moved to the West Coast and started working at Intuit in an FP&A role, which is financial planning and analysis. So I was there for a few years post graduation, and a year and a half ago, I joined Google in this current role.
So, what was your first reaction when you got your job offer from Google?
So, like many other people, Google was in my list of dream companies. I remember making a list in my undergrad of the companies where I would want to work many years ago. And it included EY, Goldman Sachs, and Google. And I have been lucky to work at all three firms, which I wanted to. So when I got the call, we were on a road trip and I was going into a national park pretty soon. And I knew I will not have signal. So I was very anxious to know the result. And my recruiter emailed and said, like, when is the good time to call you tomorrow? And I said, could you call right now? Because I won't have a signal and I don't want to wait for like multiple days to know the result, whatever it is. And her tone, like in the email, did sound positive. So I was more excited to take that call before the trip as well. And she was gracious enough to give me the call right away. And I stopped, like we were on road trips. I was driving. We stopped on a rest area and I took the call. And that trip was amazing after that. I just could not wait to come
Obviously.
back and join the role.
Obviously, yeah, that's probably the best road trip that you had in I don't know, however. But yeah, I can definitely imagine that. It seems like you used to work in the finance business before. When you first came to the US, were your thoughts on into like getting into the tech industry?
I knew that I liked finance, and that was the only thing I knew coming to the US. Even my MBA, my major was in finance, and my minor was in business intelligence and analytics. So I knew that part. I didn't know which industry. I was totally open to exploring it. I thought that investment banking or private equity, staying in the financial services, given my background, would be something that would interest me. But when I went for my investment banking experience, this was a generalist role. So I'm very grateful that I got to work at a boutique company which offered various options for me to explore the industries that I got to figure out. And I did 6 projects in 6 different industries. And tech was the most interesting one for me, which I honestly had not expected, even though I studied at an engineering college back in India. I always thought like I wanted to be on the healthcare or financial services side, but like tech turned out to be something that was so intriguing. Things were moving so fast. I worked on an IoT merger, and that was the industry like that clicked the most, and I started exploring. So coming back to UNC for second year, my focus was on high tech, but I was very keen to know like what all is out there in the tech industry side.
Got it. That makes total sense. Tell me about the process of getting into Google.
So it was slightly different because, and I don't know if it is a norm. The team was new, it was 1 year old. They were still exploring and figuring out what kind of folks they would want. Maybe it is the norm at Google. I don't know. I felt like they found me on LinkedIn just based on how my experience looked like, which was diverse. And I had worked in risk analytics at EY, which also probably helped with making a decision on regulatory affairs. But the recruiter found me on LinkedIn, reached out, and then I got referral as well internally. I do remember applying a while ago for FP&A role, but I never got a call for that. So maybe my resume was in the system too. I don't know, but I did get the call and they introduced me to this role, which was very different than what I had been doing. So I had a lot of questions. And I had a few screening rounds with the HR where she asked me questions about like Google products, some brainstorming questions. Then she introduced me to the hiring manager, which was a very conversational 30-minute screening. But again, I got to ask a lot of questions about the role, as this was something which I had not seen at many other companies either. And I can go into my role eventually and share like what it is. So it was
Yeah.
so different that I was just intrigued, and I was not sure what in my job description tied for them. So I
Yeah.
had so many questions, and that was like screening round. So after that, I had 4 rounds of interviews, which composed of behavioral as well as situational case studies, which I eventually learned that tied in very much with my day to day.
Mm.
And the case studies were to check my thought process, how I would deal with ambiguity, because there is so much. And day to day challenges, like you have to weigh in pros and cons and decide what is the right route based on the logical assumptions that you make. So all those things were tested in the behavioral, in the situational interviews, as they call it here. So that's how the like overall interview process looked like. And then within 2-3 weeks, I guess I like from start to end, I came to know that I converted it and I'll be joining
Mm.
Google.
Oh wow, that's a pretty short time. One thing, so you mentioned something about like the recruiter or the HR kind of screening you and like asking you some mini case question, did you say?
Yeah.
And like, is that normal?
Yes, I think so. So in the screening, they ask you like aptitude type questions, just like assessing how much you know about business and how you think about Google's business in
Uh,
general. Yeah, I would think it is normal. They ask it to everyone just to assess like, okay, does it worth sending this person to the next level. Although I do think that there are so many resources on Google's website itself. So Life at Google is a YouTube channel where they talk about each and every phase you would have to go to, all the things that they will test you on, the kind of interviews that you will go through. So specifically for program manager also, you can find a lot of resources, which came very handy.
got it. Interesting. Okay, now tell me what you do at Google.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Google's role is very different in terms of what a program manager does. Here, project managers are called program managers because you're not at any point managing just one project. There would be multiple things that you have to think about in a day and interlink those. In my particular role in regulatory affairs finance, the remit is to ensure any financial or business sensitive data that leaves the company globally goes through the set of process that me and my team have defined, all the right sets of approvals. It is accurate. We can stand behind it and say that's the right number because this is the background supporting it. And this the primary purpose is to mitigate any regulatory or reputational risks for Google. As you know, the environment right now, there is so much focus on high tech, and Google, being a company which truly believes in its values that we want to benefit the customers, we want to organize world's data, right? World's information in a way that it's universally available. Like all those things for our engineers and for our business people to be able to focus on that mission, they shouldn't be like spending a lot of time providing answers externally or helping write blog posts and showcasing. So that's where my team comes in. We try to make all the processes very efficient and try to reduce work for our finance counterparts
Hmm.
and legal counterparts so that it's repeatable, it's consistent, and it's accurate across the globe.
Got it. So I know you had like finance background. I guess like my question is, did you have any learning curves coming in?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say there are various kinds of learning curves that you would encounter anytime you switch a company. There is that cultural learning curve that you have to understand how this company works, how do people interact, and how does influencing without direct lines work at this company, right? So that part is pretty huge in my role as a program manager and as a project manager anywhere. You actually don't have direct reports most of the time, and you still need to get your programs going and you still need to deliver on time and at a like best quality, right? So you need to get those things done with your team members who don't report to you. So I guess that was one part that I had to quickly understand about Google, how to get things done in a manner that like here how really matters. What they're like what you can do
Mm-hmm.
is like we don't doubt that because we assessed you in your interview that you are able to deliver the results. What we care about is how you do it.
Got it.
So that's a big part about Google's culture in general. Like one of the values here is respect each other. So you are expected to challenge, but respectfully. Then
Got it.
second thing would be like the technical part, right? So I didn't do program management before, and everyone does it in their role in a way, maybe not technically, like you would not follow the steps properly, or you would know that you are following the steps when you're doing it. But when you join a role like this and you have to manage like 5 projects at a time, you need to be more organized, and you need to start using some technical skills to help you be more organized. So Google provides a lot of internal trainings, and there are Google certificates also for project management in partnership with Coursera. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing like that's an ongoing learning. Both of these are actually. And 1.5 years later, I can't say I'm an expert in any of these things, and I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the exciting part, I guess, right? You never stop
Yeah,
learning.
exactly. Yeah, the learning part is always it's about the journey. It's not about the result, right? What do you like the most and what do you like the least about your role?
The thing that I like most is the impact. So I was mentioning that I work on like all the things that go out of the company. Some of the examples would be the testimonies, right? If Sundar Pichai is going to testify in front of the Senate, I would have read his whole script. I would have ensured that the numbers are accurate. Similarly, like all the blog posts that you would see, and if it has anything sensitive that matters to our investors or external stakeholders, that ideally should have gone through my process. So like if you were not there, things would have been different, and you can see it right away as soon as it becomes public. That's the most exciting and I guess motivating part when you see the results. I also like the fact that our focus, like my team's focus, is not just on like getting one thing done just this one time. We are always thinking about, okay, how can we be better? How can we help our stakeholders, like internal stakeholders, save more time, be more efficient? So we keep on reinventing ourselves. In past 1.5 years, we have implemented 3 tools because we found something in first tool and said it's not working perfectly. Let's relaunch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, okay, there is this new integration we learned about. So let's implement this new tool and be even more useful and better. So I think that part is pretty exciting because you never get bored. Least is a difficult one because I think first 2 years you are still absorbing so much in any role that's difficult to like start disliking. If you are disliking, you would not have joined it, I guess. But some things that I'm not a fan of, I guess, is the number of people that you have to go through to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
And it depends on the complexity of the project, but the culture at Google in general, and I think at any big high-tech company, would be that you need to get many sets of eyes on a sensitive data before it releases the company, right? So I think that part where I have to have multiple calls, multiple influencing sessions, and continue documenting all those steps till it's out of the door, that's probably not my favorite part.
I think that's kind of tied into the part where you mentioned about the impact because of the impact it has, you have to go through all these layers of approvals or feedbacks so that you make sure that your impact is in the right direction. I think that's a way
Yeah.
to put it, maybe.
Yeah, and it's like really essential part of the role. So
Yeah.
no complaints there. We definitely need controls, and we
Oh yeah.
definitely need like engagement for VPs and SVPs, right? So all those things are amazing, and you learn in this process so much because anytime you have to present to a VP, I have to spend so much time preparing for it. I have to think through what all things I want out of this meeting. It's very precious 30 minutes for them. I can meet them like 4 times, but probably
Exactly.
they are not going to meet me 4 times. So like those things make you sharper in your asks and help you develop transferable skills for sure. But if you're doing 5 projects at a time and you have to do that for 5 things, it might get tiring.
Got it. It's already my last question. Advice for those who want to join Google in a financial program manager role.
So if I start from the very basics, I feel like resume is a place where you can show the impact without your voiceover. So I would start with maintaining that one page. It's really helpful because I have referred so many people internally. I have gotten positive feedback whenever there has been one page format.
Mm,
So like basic things like this, which leave more impact with like little effort from the recruiting team would be helpful. Again, referral is the best way. I think that's the case with most of the tech companies, getting your name out there in front of the right hiring manager. So that's like generic for how to get into Google or how to get the interview. But for finance program manager role, as I was mentioning earlier, there are resources on life at Google. I went through a lot of that material, and there are other like very helpful YouTube videos which help you prepare on what is a program manager. So there are two routes. So one is technical program manager, and the other one is non-technical. So finance one comes under non-technical, and you can find resources around that. They tell you what are the like essential things that you need to understand before even diving into this kind of role, because it's different than probably what you expect from a finance role. So all those resources come very handy when you're preparing and even thinking about switching. Now in this particular role, I guess you don't need any experience. My experience doesn't match with what I'm doing, especially I think Google doesn't care. If you have diverse experience, you can bring in different perspective and maintain it, and you have good problem solving skills along with that collaboration and teamwork attribute. They're good to have you. Obviously, standards are high. You have to go through the interviews, but that's what they're testing essentially. And your recruiters want you to be successful. So my recruiter was very helpful. She provided me a lot of links and a lot of material in the preparation stage, which came very handy.
Hey, Akrati, that was all. Those were all the questions for today. Thank you so much for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this.